Welcome back to Psalms in Solitude, everybody. I hope these have been encouraging to you as we're slowly but surely working our way through the Psalms one day at a time together. Today we come to Psalm 9, which you should know on the front end, this is inextricably linked to Psalm 10. So much so that many people believe it should just be one psalm together. Psalm 9 talks about God as judge and king. And then tomorrow we'll see in Psalm 10 the need for that justice and rule because of the state of man, both as a predator and as prey. But for now, let's look at Psalm 9 together. It says, I will thank the Lord with all my heart. I will declare all your wondrous works. I will rejoice and boast about you. I will sing about your name most high. When my enemies retreat, they stumble and perish before you, for you have upheld my just cause. You are seated on your throne as a righteous judge. You have rebuked the nations. You have destroyed the wicked. You have erased their name forever and ever. The enemy has come to eternal ruin. You have uprooted the cities, and the very memory of them is perished. But the Lord sits enthroned forever. He has established his throne for judgment, and he judges the world with righteousness. He executes judgment on the nations with fairness. The Lord is a refuge for the persecuted, a refuge in times of trouble. Those who know your name trust in you, because you have not abandoned those who seek you, Lord. Sing to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Proclaim his deeds among the nations, for the one who seeks an accounting for bloodshed remembers them. He does not forget the cry of the oppressed. Be gracious to me, Lord. Consider my affliction at the hands of those who hate me. Lift me up from the gates of death, so that I may declare all your praises. I will rejoice in your salvation within the gates of daughter Zion. The nations have fallen into the pit they made. Their foot is caught in the net they have concealed. The Lord has made himself known. He has executed justice, snaring the wicked by the work of their hands. The wicked will return to Sheol, all the nations that forget God. For the needy will not always be forgotten. The hope of the oppressed will not perish forever. Rise up, Lord. Do not let the humans prevail. Let the nations be judged in your presence. Put terror in them, Lord. Let the nations know that they are only humans. There's two parts to this psalm that I can see that I want to point out. Verses 1 through 12 seem to be David praising God for past deliverance, which leads him to reflect more generally on God's sovereignty over the entire world, on God's justice in his world. Notice verse 4, for you have upheld my just cause. And then in verse 5, you have rebuked the nations. And others there at the front part of the psalm seem to suggest David is thinking about particular events in which he has been delivered. But then in verse 9, we see him reflecting more generally on the way the Lord executes his control, his judgment over the world. Verse 9, the Lord is a refuge for the persecuted, a refuge in times of trouble. 10, those who know your name trust in you because you have not abandoned those who seek you, Lord. Sing to the Lord. He's praising God for his rule over the world. Sing to the Lord who dwells in Zion. Proclaim his deeds among the nations. So we see that on the front half, but then we see a shift in verse 13, where it seems as though David is facing some new adversity and he needs the Lord. He's petitioning the Lord to intervene as he has done in the past. Verse 13, be gracious to me, Lord. Consider my affliction at the hands of those who hate me. Lift me up from the gates of death so that I may declare all your praises. David's asking the Lord to give him a new reason to reflect on his power. Give him a new reason to praise him for his control, his sovereignty. Praise him for his justice among the nations. And so looking at that, I think we see a principle here that is incredibly helpful, maybe even especially in times like we're in today. When David comes up against adversity in this psalm, what's the first thing that he does? He remembers God's faithfulness to him in past adversity. He remembers how God has delivered him in the past. He's thankful for the way the Lord has sustained him up until this time. The next thing David does is he reflects on the power and justice of God, which gives him the ability to deliver him, to take care of him in the way that he has in the past. Listen to just the confidence that David has in his God in verse 7. But the Lord sits enthroned forever. He has established his throne for judgment. Verse 8, he judges the world with righteousness and he executes judgment on the nations with fairness. After those things, when David has complete confidence in his God and a fresh memory of how God has provided for him in the past, only then does David move to bring his petition to the Lord, to protect him throughout his current affliction. And so this is a helpful principle for us, just to outline it for you. Number one, remember God's faithfulness in adversity past. Number two, reflect on God's sovereignty and justice in the present. And then request God's help in adversity in the future. Remember God's faithfulness in the past, reflect on his power and justice in the present, and request his help in adversity in the future. I think this is a principle that we can apply today in current adversity you may be facing, generally with the coronavirus stuff, but specifically in your own life. But then also we can take this into the future. Remember God's faithfulness in the past. Reflect on his sovereignty, his power, his justice, his control today and always. And then, and only then, request his help in the future. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue into, some would say, the second half of this psalm, but into Psalm 10 as David continues. See you tomorrow.